So you see this is the blue handout that you have in front of you, and it says you're going to work in small groups. It's okay if it's actually just a partner. To assess the openings to your writing, we're going to look for two key elements as you evaluate the effectiveness of your openers. How introductions invite the reader to get to know you. How effectively your introduction will help your readers distinguish you from the rest of the letters or applications that they are reading. Because they're going to be reading dozens, maybe hundreds of applications. You want to stand out. All right, so you're going to exchange papers in a minute. You're not going to do it right now. You just need to make sure that you have somebody else's draft, at least one other person's draft. And what you're going to do is you're going to read your partner's draft and you're going to brainstorm questions about your partner's opening paragraph. Now, you could do this for the whole essay, but focus on the opening paragraph. The idea is the opener is what's going to make people pay attention to your application or your essay. The rest of the essay is important, but the opener is maybe the most important part for this kind of writing. And you're going to write down these questions. You're not going to write on your classmate's paper, but you're going to write down on a separate piece of paper some questions for your partner. The more questions you come up with, the easier it is going to be for your partner to say, oh, okay, that might not make sense. Maybe I should revise that. Or your partner might say, no, actually, I think that will make sense to my audience. I'm going to keep it the way it is. But you're giving your partner ideas, grist for the mill for them to revise. Okay, so let's look at my draft. So I've started writing a draft for my UCLA doctorate application, and I'm just going to read the first part to you. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is see if you can brainstorm some questions about my draft. And I'm going to pause the screencast while you guys brainstorm, and then we'll restart the screencast to hear some of your questions. All right, so it says, while I have no interest in changing jobs, I do have several professional objectives. I hope to be a bridge builder, a teacher leader, bridge builders in quotes, a teacher leader, and a co-learner in a democratic learning community. And then I'll read you the next paragraph. I serve a community that often does not receive the equal access that it deserves. My students are just as bright, just as important, just as vital to our nation's future, and most importantly, just as human as the students in our neighboring communities. Yet their opportunities and access are not always equal. I want to change this in part by connecting students and families to resources, by building bridges to resources. Okay, I'm going to pause the screencast for a moment. Okay, so one question was around the idea of being a bridge builder. So I know I've explained that to you guys a little bit, but if you were just reading this for the first time, it's quite possible that you would say, what does that mean? Probably doesn't mean like you're actually going to go out and like use a hammer and a drill and actually build a bridge over a river. But what do I mean by that? So you might write down on your piece of paper where you're giving your partner feedback, what do you mean by being a bridge builder? That would be one example. Another example that came up is this idea of being a co-learner in a democratic learning community. That phrase might not be totally clear. So you might write down, what does that mean? What do you mean by being a co-learner? Do you mean you're learning at the same time? Do you mean you're learning next to the students? Do you mean you're learning instead of the students? What do you mean by that? Those would be two questions. Now, let's say that I'm partnering with Myra or Bernardo, and they give me the paper back with these questions. That's going to help me, because now I'm going to go, oh, okay, you know what? I do need to make sure that I make bridge builder clear. Maybe not in the first paragraph, but I should make sure I address that early in the piece. The thing about co-learner in a democratic learning community, I think educators will get what that means, but I still want to think about maybe I could put it a different way. All right, so the idea is that you're going to read your partner's paper, and all you're doing is asking them questions. Then when your partner gets the questions back, he or she can look at her paper again, her or his paper again, and see, okay, maybe I need to change this, maybe I don't need to change that. All right, so that is what you are going to do today.